you all very much for being here today and for your interest in energy issues and particularly energy efficiency. Let me tell you, I think I was invited to this event because I am sponsoring legislation on energy efficiency in the Senate, which we hope will get passed this year. We are working very hard on that. And I got to my interest in energy efficiency for a couple of reasons. One is because I served as governor of my state of New Hampshire and began to retrofit some of the state buildings for energy efficiency. Energy is a big issue for us in New Hampshire and in New England because we're at the end of the pipeline, because we have a lot of old buildings, and so looking at how we can save on energy is a critical issue. We also have some of the highest average electric rates in the country because we're at the end of the pipeline. So I also served for my first 4 years in the Senate on the Energy Committee. And I came to the Senate in 2009 with great hopes that we were going to make some progress on climate change, on coming up with a comprehensive energy policy for the country, and got very frustrated. So I got to thinking about where is an area that we can agree in Congress, and it's energy efficiency, because it doesn't matter whether you support fossil fuels, increased drilling, or whether you support new alternatives, wind and solar. We all benefit from energy efficiency. In the U.S., we benefit whether we're from the Northeast, as I am, from Louisiana, from the West. Everybody benefits from energy efficiency, and we don't have to go to our opposing sides and continue to support those differences on energy issues, but we can all agree that this is an area where we can all benefit. It's also an area that is a win-win-win, as you all know. It saves on costs, it saves on emissions as we think about how do we clean up our environment. It helps create jobs because, as the companies who are represented here know, the jobs that can be created in the technologies that help us with energy efficiency are significant. And it's also important for making the U.S. and other countries, making us all more energy independent. So I think it is an important win-win for everyone. We have some really important examples of what energy efficiency has been able to do in the U.S., and I'm not going to go into too many of those because you all know what the benefits are. That's why you're here, and for many of you, you've already invested in energy efficiency. But the one that is often cited in the U.S. that I think is important, an important reminder, is the eco-friendly makeover of the Empire State Building, which reduced energy costs by $4.4 million a year, created 252 jobs, and the renovations are estimated to have saved 4,000 metric tons of carbon. So by putting in new windows, installing a new chiller plant, utilizing building controls, incorporating a web-based tenant energy system in the building's management plans, we were able to accomplish all of that. And again, I know you all understand the benefits. That's why you're here. The other reason that I got interested in energy efficiency is because as I thought about the opportunities for progress on energy issues here, given the differences of opinion in Congress, it seemed to me that we could make progress in efficiency in a way that would advance an energy agenda without looking for a magic silver bullet. For those of you who followed the debate in the 2009 Congress over cap and trade, you know that we were not able to be successful in passing that. We have not been able to come to agreement on a comprehensive measure to address climate change or energy issues. But that shouldn't stop us from making progress on an energy agenda. And again, this is where I think energy efficiency allows us to do that. We can find consensus, and I tried to do that in enlisting Rob Portman, who is a Republican from Ohio, to work with me on energy efficiency legislation. We've been working with the Alliance to Save Energy, who I don't know if anybody here is here from the Alliance. Okay, so, and a number of other organizations to put together as comprehensive a bill as we thought could get through the Congress, which means that it has no mandates in it, that it is paid for, so there's no new dollars, because we wanted to be able to get it not just through the Senate, but through the House. And it deals with the building sector in the U.S., which uses about 40% of energy. It deals with the manufacturing sector, which, as we all know, is the largest user of energy in the country. And then it also deals with the federal government. And as we all know, the U.S. government is the biggest consumer of energy in the U.S. and I think probably in the world. So it's an effort to address each of those areas and to find some agreement. According to the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, if we passed our legislation, it would, by 2030, be the equivalent of taking 22 million cars off the road. It would save consumers almost $14 billion. And by 2025, it would create 136,000 jobs. So not only is it an environmental bill, it's a jobs bill, and it's a tremendous savings to consumers. So where are we in terms of passing the legislation? For those of you who follow Congress, you may know that we got the bill to the floor about a month ago before the government shut down. And we were very excited because it was the first energy bill to come to the floor of the Senate since 2007. Unfortunately, it came to the floor and then it stalled because there were some non-germane amendments being offered and we couldn't get an agreement on how to address those. We're back working on the bill again, hoping to incorporate some of the 16 bipartisan amendments that have been proposed to the bill, that have been cleared by the committee, and we think we have an opportunity to amend those into the bill, reintroduce it with 60 plus senators supporting so that we will be able to get past a filibuster, so we won't have the same problem of having it stalled with amendments that are not related. And we're hoping to get it back to the floor sometime between now and the end of the year. So we got a boost over the weekend because Fred Upton, who is the chair of the relevant committee in the House, said that if the Senate passed the bill, he would take it up. So that was very good news. For those of you who are not from the U.S., you know that there's a difference in leadership in the House and Senate. And so we're always interested in whether, if we get something through the Senate, we can actually get it through the House. So that was good news. There is a similar bill that has been introduced in the House that also has bipartisan support. And I think there's a real hunger to try and get something done on energy. In talking to Senator Wyden, who chairs the Senate Energy Committee, and Lisa Murkowski, who is the ranking member, their thought is that if we're going to get to any other energy issues, we've got to get efficiency done, because we can't get to some of the more difficult issues if we can't get efficiency done, something that everyone can agree on, that we have broad bipartisan support for. So I am looking forward to getting this bill back to the floor. We have support from over 260 organizations, associations, businesses, everybody from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to the National Association of Manufacturers to the National Resources Defense Council. I said anytime you've got a bill that has support from the Christian Coalition, the American Chemistry Council, and the Sierra Club, that's pretty good, you know? That doesn't happen often. So thank you, yes, we're excited about that. Now if we could just get that message through to the members of the Congress. So that's the status of where we are. I am hopeful and think that we're making a last push. We have a lot of people, many of you in this audience, who are working very hard to help us get this done. And I hope that that will then clear the way for us to address a number of other energy issues that are important. I will talk about one final point that I think is important for us to address in Congress if we're going to continue to make progress on energy efficiency, and that is how the Congressional Budget Office scores or decides how much something costs. Because when I was governor and we began retrofitting buildings in New Hampshire for energy efficiency, we did it through performance contracting, so energy savings contracts. In New Hampshire, we like to think of ourselves not as cheap, but as frugal. And so we don't like to spend taxpayer money. So doing the retrofits through performance contracting was one good way to be able to get it done, but yet not spend taxpayer dollars and so get support from the legislature in that case. Unfortunately, the way the Congressional Budget Office decides how much things cost when we use those energy savings performance contracts, they charge it as a cost rather than a savings. And that creates real obstacles, I think, to allowing us to use those ESCOs in order to retrofit federal buildings. So this is a real challenge that I think we've got to address. Now, the good news is there's interest on both the Democratic and the Republican side in trying to get that done. And so I think we've got to go back at the Congressional Budget Office and talk about why they have changed the way they determine the cost for those contracts in the way that they have, because that, I think, will be a real benefit as we're thinking about how we can get more of our federal buildings retrofitted for energy efficiency. So I'm hopeful about that, and we have a lot of work to do. I know you all are looking at all of the opportunities that you have to save on your costs and to help with the environment through energy efficiency, and I congratulate you all, and particularly all of you who are working so hard at our embassies around the world, because I know this has been a real priority, and I certainly appreciate that it's a priority for Secretary Kerry, having spent 4 years with him on both the Foreign Relations Committee and having worked with him on energy issues and trying to address climate change. I know this is something that he cares deeply about, that he's very committed to, and I look forward to continuing to work with him and with all of you as we move forward an energy efficiency agenda for America and for the world. So thank you all very much. Thank you.